So there is this article that did come out, and there's actually a follow-up article where somebody went and asked some more indie devs to get some more like insight on it all. But let's read through it. The gold rush is over. Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon dev says the big Game Pass and Epic exclusive deals have dried up for indie devs. In an interview at last week's Game Developers Conference, there's a lot of anti Xbox stuff at the GDC this year. It seems like, at least. In an interview in last week's Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, the developers behind the indie sensation Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon said that the deal some small developers have come to rely on for funding in recent years, like Epic Games Store exclusives and Xbox Game Pass, are no longer what they once were. It says, I've talked to at least 5 small teams, like 35 members, and under during GDC, and they're like cuts, funding canceled, talks that were going on for a year canceled. To Casey Yano, the co-founder of the Slay the Spire studio Mega Crypt. It sounds like it's shit. We're definitely very privileged to be able to self-fund. Otherwise, I'd be very, very, very scared right now. So apparently from the Slay the Spire dev, that Game Pass deals have dried up, and the money is not there. Slay the Spire launched a slow sales in Steam early access, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to read that part. Darkest Dungeon was likewise Steam, blah, 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 blah. And then it says Darkest Dungeon director Chris Barassa said that Microsoft's deals for getting games on Game Pass have come down in scope since the subscription service began, way down. And that's actually not surprising if this is true, because I feel like all subscription services start off heavy. They reach out to as many people as possible. They have tons of money on the board that they can give out to try to get a bunch of content into the service itself. And then as the years go on and things change, they have to reduce the scope. They can't be giving out the exact same money to everybody. But again, look at March this year of Game Pass and look how good that was. So it doesn't really seem like Game Pass is slowing down too much, but to these indie developers, obviously the deals have maybe become less lucrative. It says, so has Epic. Epic, I guess, is doing the same thing. The gold rush is over. I come from the Northwest Territories. The town I'm from was built on gold. Hey, that's Canada. And then they found diamonds further north. Wow. Canada. Shout out to Canada. Maybe another paradigm shift is waiting for us, but I definitely think the scale of the deals I'm hearing about is significantly dismisses, because someone say that word for me, dismisses from the big swinging days. Certainly we got our Epic deal at the right time. So a couple of devs here saying Game Pass deals are drying up. Again, not that surprising if it's true. I feel like Xbox has a certain amount of cash that they had tons of to go out and get as much content as possible into the service, and now they have to be kind of more selective, maybe reduce the scope of how much money they are giving out. So that wouldn't be that surprising. I feel like most subscription services operate like that. But I wonder just how true that really is across the board. Because we do have this article here that also came out. Is Xbox cutting indie funding for Game Pass or adapting to the times? Devs weigh in. I believe this is also a Canadian website. It is a Canadian website. Canada doing big things these days. This is a .ca domain, guys. This is a .ca domain. Shout out to Canada. Yesterday, a story came out that Game Pass Gold Rush is over. Xbox isn't focusing on Game Pass as much and aren't paying nearly what they once did, and because of it, developers weren't getting the funding that they had hoped for. Epic is also supposedly cutting way back on funding. Some took it as yet more doom and gloom for Xbox, and others like myself had more questions than answers. I was in the boat of having more questions than answers, as you can see as I read through that article. So I went in search of answers myself and spoke to a few indie devs. Most didn't want to speak on the record, but their sentiments were all the same. So this is like, sounds like it sounds like somewhat of a contradiction to that PC gamer.com article. Now I have to check. Is this all the same damn company? Is this? No, it's not. All right. It's not. It's not Repop. PC Gamer is part of Future US Inc. I was going to say, if this was a part of GamesIndustry.biz and VGC, which are all the same, you go down here, you can see. If it was a part of this news conglomerate, then that would be crazy that all three of them put out these articles at the same time, but it's not. So I guess like they're all off the hook on that end. So this dev says the money is still there. It's just harder to get. Was how one put it. Gone are the days when Xbox would accept just about any game sent their way. And that's fair. That makes complete sense. That actually makes complete sense. That they, like I said, they had to get an influx of content into the subscription service to grow it. Now that the service is stable, it has lots of subscribers. Now they're going to be more selective about the content they put in there. They said they need ample amounts of content back then and were willing to accept what they could get. They were definitely in quantity over quality mode, and this is a good thing, in my opinion. If you're a consumer, you want Game Pass to have consistent quality over just anything. They say now that they have a very large first-party portfolio to fund, that's another key thing. Their first-party portfolio is insanely huge. On top of the out-of-control budgets in the industry, they are a bit more cautious when it comes to funding, but that's not to say they won't. Enter the man who is willing to speak on record, the Falconeer, and the recent Bulwark Falconeer Chronicles developer, Thomas Sal. The Falconeer is a good game. You should check that out if you haven't. Who echoes a lot of the same sentiments. I think the industry is just in a shift at the same time that economic fortunes are changing. And then he says, but I don't believe things are as dire as some are saying. Deals are still being made. Platforms still need games to sell or stream to their subscribers and will need to pay to acquire them. Indeed, as Salas says, we see almost weekly new games going into their subscription services. Xbox needs content to keep flowing and keep subscribers engaged, but this is where he sees the biggest difference. And it's not just dealing with Xbox, but all platforms and subscriptions. So this is super interesting. This quote here, this part, I'll see what he says here, but he says, you'll need to bring more to the table to succeed, better pitches, and often hard data that shows your game is likely to succeed or has succeeded. That isn't necessarily an unsurmountable obstacle for those experienced and prepared for it. So this is interesting. Let's take a look here. So we have PC Gamer here. The gold rush is over. Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon devs say that Game Pass and Epic exclusive deals have dried up for indie devs. So they frame it as that. They talk to a couple. They have two devs here that comment, and they're basically saying, well, this dev here says, it sounds like it's shit. We're definitely very privileged to be self-funded, but I'd be very, very, very scared right now. That's the quote that they put out here. So they went and interviewed this person. They said, hey, that's a great quote. Let's put out an article saying that Game Pass is drying up and there's no more deals out there. And then you go over here to obviously a much smaller website. I've never heard of gamersocialclub.ca, but clearly a better website because they are from Canada. And they interviewed real developers, and the developers are framing this in a completely different light, basically saying, yeah, like it's changed slightly, but there's still deals out there. But it makes sense that it's changed slightly because Xbox they have the content in there and they have a huge first party output within Xbox. It's just crazy to me the difference you get from this article to this article, both with quotes. This isn't just somebody's opinion. This one, I guess, technically isn't just somebody's opinion either. They're both with quotes, but how there's such a difference in how some of these devs are looking at it, and then how there's such a difference in how the article is framed. But it's great that they went out there and actually asked people and brought some more light to if the gold rush was truly over. The gold rush, I would say, them giving money out to everybody may have died down, but like this dev says here, doesn't believe things are as dire as some people are saying. They say, indeed, as Salas says, we see almost weekly new games going into their subscription services. Xbox needs content to keep flowing, keep subscribers engaged. But this is where he sees the biggest difference. And it's not just dealing with Xbox, but all platforms and subscriptions. You'll need to bring more to the table to succeed. Better pitches, often hard data that shows your game is likely to succeed or has succeeded. This isn't necessarily an unsurmountable obstacle for those experienced and prepared for it. So, I mean, that's a good take on that. And they say, and let's be clear here, this is just one developer's experiences and thoughts. Every developer is different, and each deal these developers go for is different, but Xbox is in a position where it needs not just content anymore, it needs results. This is where Salah hopes not just Xbox, but all platforms get back to a bit more. I feel platforms and storefronts have a responsibility to also take some risks on culturally or artistic content, games that aren't there to make it rain but enhance our field of art. I agree. I totally agree. Like, that's one of the great things about indie devs, is that they have those culturally or artistic different styles of games that isn't just the same that a lot of these big AAA devs like to push out nonstop over and over again. I think that makes a big difference. He says those are likely to suffer first because they feel like a luxury, but in an industry where addiction is a byword for success and stagnation failure, our societal goodwill and capacity to innovate aren't luxuries. I agree. I like this, Thomas Sella. That is potentially one downfall of how things are being run now. Indie games are some sort of the most creative, ambitious projects out there. I agree. That's another take. I've said that many times on my channel. I actually think that they are the most creative right now, and they need that funding to survive. And I agree with Sal's comments. There needs to be a balance between money making and taking risks. I get it's a business, not a charity, but sometimes it's worth the risk when the reward can be an outstanding experience. Okay. So there's a couple things here. And I'm going to just talk about the media. We read through this. It looks like this is bullshit. I mean, things are changing, but it's like, it's not drying up, but the gold rush isn't over. Or it depends, I guess, on how you categorize the gold rush, where it's like you could go in there and say, here's my game. And it's like a piece of shit going across the screen, and Xbox will give you money. I guess maybe it's dried up in that way. But this article here, this from gamersocialclub.ca is like 100 times better than this article here from PC Gamer, which is a massive company compared to, I'm guessing, I may look like an idiot here, but we'll go down and see, but I'm guessing this is like an indie site, like just a random site on the internet. But this is just so much better, so much more insightful, so much better written. That's actually wild to me, that this one here is so much better. And developer interviews that they have are way more insightful and way better to kind of understand what is going on here. But I guess the conclusion of is Game Pass drying up for deals? The conclusion is no. The conclusion is Xbox is making it harder to get a Game Pass deal. They want you to actually show them that your game will be successful or will be worthwhile to them to put it on the subscription service, which is a good thing. And the reason it's happening is because they have so many games on the service already now. They've taken that time, they filled the service, and they also have a huge amount of first-party IPs that they're going to be able to continue to provide to the service, that they don't need to give out Game Pass deals to anyone who comes and knocks at their door.